about a third down from the top of the page, Samaches, with a line that starts with the word ukenodah, the amitis in the sos.
11 lines.
Why was there Bechira, the selection of the Jewish and the Shomas Israel, as opposed to any other nation? Because the Shomas Israel, they are rooted in Atzmos. And as it says, there are three things that unite one with the other. Israel and the Raisa Kuchabriya. Israel bind with the Torah, and the Torah is bound with Kuchabriya. And Kula Sosim V'Gali. All three have two aspects. Sosim, the concealed, and the Galio, and the revealed. So that this union, this uniting between these three is on both levels. On the Galio, where there's an expression of what is a similarity, what is a connection, and the Sosim. Sosim is that which is totally internal. And as we started discussing the Indian from Sosim, particularly the difficulty understanding Sosim, the Kuchabrihu. So we started saying Sosim, the Kuchabrihu. This is what's called Stimu de Chostim. Which means, as we started discussing, clearly this is not something that we have a grasp of, but in contrast, normally by us there is that which you can grasp. There is some kind of an access. Like we gave you an example, there's a seam, there's a way how you get into there. And stimu, especially stimu the Chostim, which tells the Shosim to contribute, there is not a beginning, there is not an entity that defines how did this all start and what is this all about. Thus, these are all lofty things, but we always want to keep abreast some kind of a connection, so that it has some kind of a effect in our thinking, in our mind, in our seichel. The principle Sosim is that there is an absolute truth, an absolute reality in the connection between Eden and Torah and the Meibush. And it's not based on any functional element at all. This is the Sosim. Which would be a Sosim stimulus. Let's not show it Trisa Beklal. And as we started saying, thought, the principle of thought is that there is a handle and a means of getting to something. That's means thought. This Mashal Trisa Beklal, we always explain that in order to grasp anything, you have to be able to go beyond the boundary, go to its end, to its natural limit, and then you can grasp it like a table. You grasp by its outside edges. In order to grasp anything, you have to be able to, especially in machshava, you can feel things, but to grasp machshava, you have to have a grasp. You have to have an access to see where is this thing. Where is this beginning? Where is this end? There is no beginning and there is no end. Therefore, there is no means of machshava having any access to it. This is the stimulus which should be, and the connection between Eden and Torah and the Meibush is not through the process of machshava. It is entity to entity, the truth to truth. This is what we are going to be discussing now. Ukenodah, okay? Ukenodah, and as is known, the Amit is inyan sosim, that the true principle of sosim. Sosim means, we translate sosim means concealed. But it does not mean concealed in the common sense of the word. It hides something. Sosim means that it is totally internal. It is true into itself. Hu masha sosum v'nela mitzad atzma. That the true Inyan of a sosim is that it is sosum v'nela mitzad atzma, meaning that its concealment is not from the perspective that you cannot act from outside. Internally also it is sosum v'nela. Because its presence is not associated, it's not dependent on any particular message, on any particular presence. Which is the pnimis and atmos ein soif mamash. The pnimis means the internal. The inyan of atmos ein soif, the way it is known only to itself. As this pnimis and atmos is known only and present only in the truth of its own. Amitis pnimis eir atmos is the truth of the pnimis. Where does the word amitis come in? Again, this is all means by which it helps us to distinguish between what we normally associate with and what this Ayin is. There is no way we don't have even. There's no way we can in Seichel identify with Pnimis Atzmos in Seichel. But we do have a sense of the word emes. Emes means that it is true in and of itself. It's not a constructed truth. It is an essential truth. Amitis pnimis, the essential truth means that it does not come from any place. It doesn't have an origin. It doesn't have an aim. This is the amitis pnimis erat musis. This is the Inyan of what the Bechira is, the connection. The Bechira from Hashem to Torah and Eden is not a Bechira that came about at some point in time. To put it in our term, it was not a sense of laying out all the options and examining them and says, okay, I'll choose this. This choice is inherent in the essence itself. There are no other options. There's only one possibility. Only that possibility which is present in the origin. We'll go through a few lines and then maybe we'll further discuss it to bring it closer. Ve'eraisa, and then there is also Eraisa. In Torah there's also Sosim.
Hello? Rabbi Paltiel?
Yes, sir.
Is it fair to ask a question now or it's too early?
It all depends what the question is.
Okay, so it's a general question.
Why don't you wait until we finish the whole Inyan over here? It's not that long, it's just a couple of lines. Ve'eraiso sosim hu bechinas teira hagduma. This is what is defined as referred to as Torah HaGeduma. Keduma sounds to us means an earlier, something that preceded, something that Kodim is before. But really the word Keduma does not mean before. Keduma means original. It is present in the original state. Again, I said we'll discuss this Indian a little bit after we have all the input, but it is not necessary that we open our mind and understand that Kutchabriyu, God and Torah and Israel, they are not present circumstantially. Under these circumstances, in order to fill this gap, you have this. Like we say from a very chitzoniistic thing, where does the world come from? Oh, there must have been a creator. Therefore, I become aware that there is a creator because there is a world. That's not being aware of the creator. It's an upside down awareness because the creator preceded the world. And we have the capability, this is that Yidden have that initial awareness prior to any manifestation, prior to any indication. Like the Rambam says, the first principle before any wisdom, we know that there's a first being. There's a first being. How do you know there's a first being? This is not a knowledge that you discover, that you find out. This is a reality of the Jewish soul.
He just has to bring it on the level of Chochmah. The light is that he has to bring it down.
Yes and no. Chochmah is not bringing it down. Chochmah is directly, it has a direct view of it. From Chochmah, it's brought down into being.
But what is the command of the person to do? To focus in that.
Oh, you mean what the Rambam says?
Yeah.
Leadership, that's yes. That further you have to then contemplate it and put it into perspective and have a knowledge of it. But the initial awareness of it is initial in the nefesh.
Yeah, but the awareness is also that he has a choice not to be aware and being aware.
No. No, that's what nefesh is.
But you see people don't have that awareness.
There are few people who don't know that they're alive. They don't know what to live, I think. This that they're not aware does not mean that they're not aware. It means that they're not aware of what they're aware. You don't know what their awareness is. This is.
But on that you have to focus. But what you are really aware. I mean.
Yeah, well, we'll come back. This is a completely different venue, okay? Different aspect. Let me say this. What you're speaking about is practically how do you get there. That's not what we're dealing with. We're trying to identify what is there. And as we discussed yesterday, we talked all the time, the difference between saying that the world has developed gradually on its own, and that the world was created, is not only the fact that there is a creator or not a creator. It's a different world. Okay, let's go. So Torah Hagduma, the Sosim of the Reisa, is what's called Torah Hagduma. What's Torah Hagduma? Keduma does not mean that which preceded something. Keduma means original. The Torah as it is present at an original state before anything was created, before any thought of creation or revelation. It's present together with the Creator. This one Torah Hagduma. Shenikro, which is also called Nistoris. Nistoris means that which is concealed. Shenemar, as the Pasuk says, Hanistoris la'avaya lekeinu. That Nistoris, they are really in the property of Avaya lekeinu. V'leyo de'inish erko. That no being, no human being, Yoda erko knows it's to evaluate it. Rak Elikim Haven Darko. Only Elikim understands its way, its pathways. This is a posuk here. Leodinish Erko and Elikim Haven Darko. What does it mean? It means, and here's the so to speak, the focus. The Dias Atzma Yedeyas Atei. That Torah, that aspect of it, the source of the Torah, that an histories of Torah, is not something which the Eibishter, which in Lakus, it was identified as a separate Indian. But Dias Atzmi Dias Atei, by knowing himself, he knows the Torah. Bahainu, which means as Chochma the Torah. This refers to the Chochma of Torah, K'mei Klula be'atzmos. The Chochma of Torah, as it is, Klula, included, incorporated be'atzmos in atzmos itself. Again, we will try to put things a little bit in perspective when you finish all the presentation. V'hu b'chinas helam ha'atzmi, the Chochma ha'gduma shebe'atzmos. This is what's called also Helm or Atzmi, the essential Helm, contained in the Chochma Hagduma, in the original Chochma, that is an Atzmi. Sukmation is boily yield, as we explained earlier. So again, to put things in perspective, what are we talking about? It's Helem, it's concealed, and it's in essence the one way that we can kind of decipher these words, again, not to understand the Lakus at that level, but to understand the words with which what this presents, is what we speak about the human being. We're saying that by a person, by a human being, by a person, there is also Chochmah, Bina, and Das. Like the Rambam says, that the first principle is that we know that there is a Motzur Ish. Now, what makes us know that there is a Mosul issue? Not how do we get to know. What makes us know? What triggers that knowledge? Normally, knowledge has to have a trigger. When you have a question, you have an answer. You're curious about something. Otherwise, in our perception, if I'm not curious about it, I'm not going to try to know it. And if I'm not curious about anything, then I don't want to know anything. Then I sleep through it. Let's take that in perspective for a second. I know this is all the challenge. Can a person sleep through a lifetime? No. Triggering, nothing bothering me. Nothing bothering me. I'm being fed intravenously. You don't have to practice chewing.
No way.
Any reaction to that?
Yeah, no. You can't.
I'm shocked by the question. But it's an interesting question.
The essential nature of a person is... No.
Why not?
Because the essential nature of a person is to be alive, not to sleep. So one isn't only reactive to circumstance. Once someone has a soul, by nature, they want to do...
What is this nature? What?
Without
Without a trigger? Without anything?
You have to take away those things which are blocking that, but you have to take away, it's not about even gaining a new knowledge, it's taking away those things which block that as awareness. But essentially, the person who has a soul wants to be creative and active. Oh, I heard
Why?
myself.
He wants to be an active.
Because
Ask any psychologist, he'll tell you that he wants to be an actor because he doesn't want the guy, his neighbor, to outdo him.
we're talking about Torah, we're not talking about psychology now.
Okay, so why not?
Because he has a neshama.
What is in the neshama? What is the neshama tell him?
He has a yearning. He needs to accomplish something. Even in psychology, Viktor Frankl is saying that the person comes to him if he's not having a mission or accomplishment, that's why he's sick.
One second. Is that an antidote to being sick?
To do something. Then he's
To
himself.
prevent boredom?
Then he's himself.
Okay. Where is that himself, that self come
That
from?
self
What kind of self is this?
Because that self is not an individual self. That self is connected with everything. So a person, let's say, may not have any individual things that bother him, let's say, but he can't sleep because he has a chelkokai, by nature is connected with everything. That isn't focused around him only. That's the nature of a soul. If you just look in terms of individualism from a psychological perspective, you're right, Taka. From a perspective of Elokus, person has a soul, and maybe things don't revolve around him. It's about the world. So he may have no problems, but he can't sleep because there's still a whole world out there. He has to be.
In other words, he's concerned with the fact that there is a big world, and there are things in the world that he doesn't know.
No, not because of him. The focus is not on him.
What?
The thing that he has a need to, because he has a need to teach an item, any word you want to use, but it's not about him. It's about gaining knowledge, gaining more comfort. When he has a soul, the rest of the age is just to make you tachtoinim. It's not about him anymore.
All right. So here's my point. We all sense that this is not possible. And yet we can't put our finger on it. We're going a little bit in circles. The reason we're going in circles, and we can't put our finger on it, is that we are trying to identify it with Seichel. And Seichel has a beginning. Therefore, we're looking always for the beginning of this. And the minute we start saying you're beginning, this is not nefesh. So what this is alerting us to, this is what the value of this question is alerting us to understand and to know that nefesh ha'odam, or step back a moment, that the principle of truth, of godly truth, is not simply not to be bothered and to be contained and be content within itself and be whole. The principle of truth is, let me step back a moment. We have mentioned many times that the principle when etzem atzmi, the influence of atzmi is that he is automatically everywhere. Not because everything complements him. Because an atzmi transforms everything into his own truth. That's what an atzmi is. That atzmi means a fundamental truth, not a relative truth, a fundamental truth. Like it says in Chassidus, that the sun is an etzem behiri. The brightness of the sun is not a created brightness, but it's an essential brightness. It's a godly brightness. And this is why, wherever the sun is, it becomes bright automatically. In other words, the Chassidus explains to us the brightness of the day, we discuss it many times, is not that light travels from the sun and then energy travels from the sun and hits the earth. Wherever the sun is, everything's automatically bright because it's an essential brightness, not an active brightness, but an essential brightness. And as we mentioned all the time, this essential element is not possible for us to grasp in Seichel because Seichel is not essence. Seichel has a beginning. There's one Ayin in Seichel that is extremely special, extremely fine, and that is that Chochmah. Chochmah is also Seichel, but Chochmah can relate to the pure truth without the beginning. Like for example, this is what we always say: sight. Hearing, when you hear something, you know how come you hear, because there's sound hitting your ear, and you know where the sound is coming from, and that's how you hear it. Sight does not have an explanation how I see. I see because it's there, so I see it. It's not an active thing. So this is why we said that Chochmah is like sight. So Chochmah gives us a means to relate to this kind of truth. It is also not the truth itself, because like in sight, you could see it, you can close your eyes and not see. But when you open your eyes, there is no activity involved in seeing. You see automatically whatever there is to see. Like I always point out, it's a very phenomenal realization that with sight you can see in an instant. As soon as you open your eyes, you see the entire panorama, no matter how large and how wide it is, and what's contained in it. You see everything at once. How can you see everything at once? It's contained in time and space. It occupies miles and miles and miles. How can you see everything at once? Because the whole meaning of sight is that you're seeing the truth directly. That's like Choch. You see it not because you see it, but because it's true. This is the principle of Sosim. Like Choch, you see, you don't know how come I see. How did it begin? So Chochmah is actually only a moshel for the unit of Sosim. Because the Sosim, this is in Etzem HaNefesh. This is higher than Chochmah. But Chochmah gives us a little bit of a means to relate to it and to conceptualize the scene.
When we say that cycle has a beginning, that's the bin there already?
Even Chochmah is it. You open your eyes and you close your eyes. Except Chochmah is so refined that despite the fact that you open your eyes, you're able to see beyond the beginning. Because if you saw it from the beginning, you wouldn't be able to see the entire extent of this all the time. You go beyond. You go to the origin, to the source. We discussed this many times.
But in Binah, you don't see beyond.
No, Binah draws from Chochmah. Its message. But then you have that's what they want.
That's only the beginning.
That's right. Binah constructs the whole unit. So the point which I wanted we should understand, to whatever degree it's possible to understand, but it is very important. This principle, this image, this is what we call Amunah. And Amunah is really beyond Chochmah. This is what's called a solid reality in the Nefesh order. This solid reality is not just a reality devoid of awareness, devoid of oil. It's full of oil. And yet it is absolutely solid.
I don't understand the word you're using. Solid or valid?
But
What's the word that modifies reality? Solid or valid?
solid. I'm saying a solid means emunah. What is the word emunah? Emunah, out there says emunah means that it's steadfast. It doesn't vary. Now, if it
And
doesn't,
therefore it's not graspable? Because it's solid, it's not graspable?
it's not graspable. That's not the point we're making. Yeah, it's true. It's not graspable. The point is that okay. Let me step back. Here's the thing which I want to say. Something which in our logic is very controversial, contradictory. It is complete and total within itself, and yet it is constantly emanating messages. What is messages about? This is the point. Similar, if we can project the idea that we say that the sun, it's always easier when you have something that we can refer to. The sun is a etzem behiri. The fact that the sun illuminates the world is not an active part of the sun. Its very presence illuminates the entire world, the entire expanse of millions of miles. Because the etzem transforms everything into its own reality.
So to the messages.
Yeah. Okay. Here's another variation to this, which probably we'll be able to even have a better grasp. We say all the time, it says in the Chizim Zan Ayin, that Odom Shein Beis a bias, a home for a person, is an essential element of the human being. Now, in a very tangible way, they pointed out the following. You own a home. And then you go and you expand your home. You take one wall off and you move it 10 feet out, and the other connecting walls you build out at 10 feet. Now the house is 10 feet wider. Okay. So think of this like this. Now this house in which you are is 10 feet. Did you have to expand yourself to occupy this extra 10 feet?
He was already there.
Did you have to expand yourself? Did you have to bring yourself there? You understand? How did you get there? The answer is, you and the home is one thing. Not because you own the home, but because you have inherently the union of a home. This is an inherent reality in a person. And therefore he occupies automatically the entire home. Doesn't have to even claim it. This is the concept of an etz. This principle that a human being has a home, to the extent that he occupies the entire home instantaneously, literally instantaneously, even more than instantaneously. Before the home is even built, he's already there. Is that a conscious thing in a person? Is that some kind of an activity? This is what's called soci. It's completely contained in the person, and yet it's very active. It's extremely active. He is there whenever he is allowed in. How did he get there? Because there's an essential truth in this, and that's why he got there. This is the principle of soci. Soci does not mean there is nothing going on. On the contrary, the whole world, everything is going on. But it's going on without any pursuit, any activity, because of the essential truth of it. This is what the Rebbe is explaining. There is Sosim the Kuchabriel. Sosim the Kuchabriel, yes, Kuchabriel is complete. He doesn't need anything. Does that mean he is sleeping? Doesn't need anything. This is what's called infinity. And within this infinity there is the union of Torah, which is the sosim of Torah. And there, within there is also Yisrael, Neshomas Yisrael. This whole bind and this whole interaction is not through an activity, it's through an essential reality. As we pointed out, essential reality is active all the time, but it's not active from a position of inactivity. It is active from a position of the essential truth. Like they say, the sun illumines the world without activity, without doing anything, without sending its ray out. It's his presence that makes it bright. Like in the case of the home. I think this is used as a means to relate to these things. In the home, the person automatically occupies the entire home in one instant. Not even an instant. Not even an instant.
What was the reason? You gave a reason that they were, because the two are. What was the reason that you said that the person automatically?
What?
Why does the person automatically occupy his whole home?
Because the union of a home to a person is an essential truth. It is not a functional truth. Part of the definition of the human being is that he has a home. It's not for functional purposes. We discussed this many, many times. And the Gemara, the expression in the Gemara is Odom she'ein lebayis einoi Odom. Einoi Odom means he is not a human being, not that he is lacking something.
So the cost the home.
Excuse me?
Cost the home is representing an essential element of the person. Therefore, the person fills it automatically.
Yeah.
Fills it.
Because that's part of the human being. The essential truth of the human being. This connects us to the original question, can a person sleep through a whole lifetime? We have explained, because this is way in our world, so we can discuss it, yet we have to not forget the truth of it. Why is it Adam Shein Abayis Ani Adam? Because a human being came to the world to be a presence in the world. In order to be a presence in the world, that's what the home means. The home gives him an anchor, gives him a place in the world. He has to be a presence there. That's what he is in this world. He's not in this world a visitor. And he's trotting on the earth because the earth doesn't mind. No, he belongs there. Because his Ayin is to be a presence in the world, therefore the home is what gives him is an essential reality of the person. The full definition of the human being is that he has a presence in the world.
And that's the same reason why the person is going to be active and involved in the world.
That's right, then it's impossible not to be active. Because that's the definition of the human being.
You're saying that this atom, like everything is going on there, yet it's not based on any function.
Right.
So really for us there is no means to know what's going on there.
That's correct.
So we should just like with the sun, for example, we're saying it's etzem behiri. But about what we're talking about here about etzem, like the sosim of Torah.
In the sun, etzem behiri, we also don't have an idea what that means.
Right. So we have no means to speak about that.
That's correct.
But on the other hand, we have to. I mean, it's all in our best interest to let it explain itself, so to say, because to let it be what it is. In our world, things that don't make sense don't belong at all, because we, if it doesn't do anything, if it doesn't, so what is it? What is it exactly?
So we have this here that we are not bound to be limited to our world.
Right.
We know things that are beyond world, such as the Lakus and Torah.
That would be an example of something where the person does not automatically, it's not, I guess this is obvious, but something where the person is not automatically involved, where the person doesn't spread into. Everything the person is involved in is essentially part of his being here on the world and be part of the world. So in a sense, everything is representing an essential aspect of the person, you know?
That's why we're saying that there is the essence and then there is koiches and functional aspects.
What question are you answering right now?
I'm trying myself to understand the question.
When you do, please repeat it.
Is there anything that a human being is involved in that is not his essence? That's the question. We have the following illustration. Okay, let's take to the home. The home is an essential thing. The furnishings in the home, that is a secondary level. That's on a secondary level. Even though, yes, that's part of the midas and so forth, but that's midas, and that's not the essence of the person. You won't say a person doesn't have a table, he's not a human being. Doesn't have a home, yes. Even though the home per se develops further. This is like we're saying that there is the nefesh and then there's koiches nefesh. Koiches nefesh as functional things. The truth is that this is not okay. Finish answering the question. The point, the difficulty over here, and this is what I'm focusing in, because this is significant to understand, to know. Significant to know that there is a truth in Torah, and truth in Eden, and truth in their connection with Beis. There's not a question, how come, what is the meaning of that, what for? What is accomplished there? This is what Ayin is.
Isn't that obvious? Sorry, I know I'm being religious, but isn't it? I mean, why is that not obvious?
Not at all. Not at all. Everybody is looking for what's the benefit of that? Did you ever think of Shabbos as a good day of rest? Huh? You did? All right.
Since we're coming to the close now, can I ask the question that I had earlier?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, so it's probably what you would call a klutz concept.
Can you pick it up?
The way you describe this Bechira of the Yidden in Atzlus is there really is no alternative. This is how it must be, this choice of the Jewish people, because they're the only ones that have an appreciation, an element of Atzlus themselves. So how is something where there is no alternative, it can only go one way, how do we attach the term Bechira to such a phenomenon?
So Bechira in that context is similar to your loving your children. You have a choice but to love your children? So how do you call that love? The answer is contained in this discussion we just now had. Can a person be inactive a lifetime? Nothing is bothering him. No, he actively loves his children, even though he cannot lose them, he cannot not love them. That's what the Bechira. Bechira is the pshat that yes, indeed, there isn't. It's not a question of being confused. What do I choose? Bechira is the pshat that I really want it actively, not by default.
So it's deciding actively to do what must be done.
That's right. And this actively does not mean actively to rejection of anything else, but actively just for its own sake.
Example you gave before about the house, like when a person moves the wall, he expands automatically, doesn't have to do one active thing, and even before he build the house, he's there already. So it brings to mind some of the to get kind of in touch or to be, I don't know what, with this truth that we're talking about, you have to be very quiet, kind of.
Quiet?
Because like to hear, it's not, I don't know the right words for it, but I'm saying that this is what we describe, like this, it happens automatically, there is no recollection of it, there is no indication of it, yet it happens.
No, there is a recollection, there is indication.
Which is?
He occupies the whole home.
Right. But I'm saying I'm saying it's, if you focus on the functional aspects of life, it's very easy to not to be aware of what's going on, essentially.
In other words, what you're saying is, if you are concerned about about having a place to put your bed, then you will not be experiencing the real union of home.
Right. Or if concerns somebody gonna take
Okay,
it away
but
from you or
yeah,
whatever.
But that's Chitzonius. That's not the real human being. That's Chitzonius. That's like we said many times. The person who lives like we had a man, this Howard Hughes, and they never always make it, not always mentioned. He was a phenomenally wealthy man. He didn't have a place in the world. He was constantly concerned about his well-being. He lived in hotels. He didn't have his own home. He was not a real human being with all the wealth. You know, an interesting thing comes up. The mother says that the person matures at 20. And what is this maturity? At 20, he begins to really appreciate the value of things in the world. And it's explained that prior to that, when he's not fully mature, so cash in his pocket is more valuable to him than a piece of real estate. Fluid things, I can buy me a candy. What can I do with a house? But as he matures, he understands that something real estate, that something that is stationary, that is there, it's going to be there in a year and 2 and 10 years from now, is much more valuable. This is the real thing. Anything expandable is expandable. That is a special depth in the person, where a certain reality in the person's surface begins to surface. That's what maturity is about. That's what maturity is about. Immature means, yes, he also appreciates things. I appreciate things, but he's got an explanation what he's looking for. But then maturity means that, yes, there is a reality to it. He wants it for its own sake.
So 20 isn't necessarily. So 20 isn't necessarily the age on the passport.
No, 20 is the beginning of that. All right, let me go back and just re-emphasize why am I going into this? These are such very deep and really there's no way we can really understand. But so what's the point of this? The point is that we should understand that there is an element within us, as I said before, that's called Emunah, that is indestructible. And our connection with this truth of life, with the godly truth, is indestructible. That is the real source of all our thought, and all our inspiration. What am I going to get from this? What am I going to get? What's the reason for this? You can justify and explain all kinds of different things, and it's never going to be the real thing. The real thing is because that's the truth, and this is what I want. Person wakes up in the morning. That's mentioned all the time. Says his time is over. And he wakes up. He wakes up and he gets up. What gets him up? He has thought, oh, I can do this. I'm going to do this. He gets up is because I want to be up. I want to be up. Why am I not? Because I'm up, I'm aware of the world, I'm aware of the neighbors. Moi Daniel Funach Shkazat to be Nishmos. Oh, the reality woke me up, I'm here. That's why the person wakes up. This is the strongest impetus to get him up.
Is the ratzon?
Huh?
This is the ratzon?
Yeah, and if a person stays in bed, for example, let's take the negative, the opposite. A person continues to stay in bed. There's nothing pushing him out. He stays in bed and lays out. And hours later he wakes up and he gets up and he feels uncomfortable. He's not happy with himself. What bothers him? That he missed out on a coffee or on ice cream or on a walk? What bothers him? He missed out on life. He didn't miss anything. What was happening here? That's what bothers me. Where was I? In other words, there's an essential Inyan in this. He was alive and he wanted to live. That's why he gets up. This is why we say Meidani. And in Meidani we say, you have returned the neshama to me. We have to remember this is essential to the person's well-being. And he woke up because the Rebbe should woke him up. There's a reality to this. He didn't wake up because something was pressing on him. Or because he had enough of sleep. He was awakened into life. That is the essential. That's the essential beginning of the day. So when we're learning about these deep things and trying to bring out what does this mean? What does this mean in real life? It means that we do not need an explanation why I'm getting up, why I'm going to shul, why I'm doing what I'm doing. I don't need an explanation for it. It's the reality of life itself. The horaya, that if I missed out, I'm not concerned what I missed. I missed on life. That's the feeling in the person.
That's what? That's what? I didn't hear the last words.
I missed on life.
Missed a lot.
Not this or that. So we spent a lot of time on this. I hope the point is coming through. That's the important thing. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Disconnected.
Ah